So now it is a great pleasure to introduce you to today's moderator for your Sustainable Solutions panel. Alycia Drube is founder of Positive+Impact Event Consulting, a consulting company focused on empowering event businesses with tools and strategies to stay ahead of the curve of event standards on sustainability. Alycia got her Sustainable Event Profession certification from the EIC and knew it was her mission to share what she learned with the community. Alycia's big goal is to help all of us in the event industry make a more positive impact by reducing the overwhelm and increasing action. Everyone, round of applause. Please help me welcome Alycia.
Hello.
Hello, my friend.
Much, Devin.
You're welcome. Big hugs.
Big hug.
Thank you for bringing this knowledge to us.
I don't even need this, I don't think. Do I keep it anyway?
I do want to share that Alycia has an impact everywhere she goes. So much so when I also need to say, I don't know if every of you know, but Alycia also helps produce the entire Northwest Event Show. So all of the behind-the-scenes work, Alycia's been tirelessly working and also preparing for this panel, and then took the time to educate me on the fact that I didn't know that my AI usage actually has a water consumption attached to it. So even in one-off conversations, Alycia makes a positive impact on everyone.
You're so sweet. Thank you so much, Devin. Hello, everybody. I'm just going to set down my little bottle. So you're not going to see any of us up here with a plastic bottle today. Sustainability is really important in events. It's a big, big topic, and a lot of us get really overwhelmed and feel like we can't take action. But that's what we already come in knowing today. We want to make you feel like you can take action by the end of this. We're reducing overwhelm. Sustainability is the concept that we want the human race to sustain through time. That includes the planet we live on in order to do that sustenance. So I am Alycia Drube. As aforementioned, Positive Impact Event Consulting is my company. My pronouns are she, her. I am a white woman with curly brown hair. I'm wearing a green shirt, beige pants, and heels. I say that today because we're not covering inclusivity, but that was a sustainable action that I just took. Including humans is part of sustainability. But today we're going to be talking a lot more about waste. We're going to be talking about tactics and value in reducing your waste, tactical decision making from step 1 in your planning, how to leverage your resources to improve your sustainability, and your audience and attendee engagement to get that action. So I'm going to introduce my wonderful panelists today. They are coming from institutions that you're familiar with from an angle of nature conservancy. Today we're doing humanity conservancy. So first off, the part I really want to get right. I have the VP of Facilities and Operations at Seattle Aquarium. During his time at the aquarium, he co-led the development and implementation of the Aquarium Regenerative Plan, focusing on strategically embedding sustainability across the aquarium operations. And if you got to come to the welcome reception last night, you saw the products of his efforts. It's Jesse Phillips-Kress. Thank you. Woo, 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 woo. Next up, we have Customer Success Manager at Bold Reuse. Hopefully you've noticed that her products are around at our refreshment stations as well as in zoos, aquariums, and sports venues across the country. It's Jen Skelley. Did I mispronounce that? I forgot to ask. Okay. Of Blue Daisy Consulting, here representing our session sponsor, Seattle Public Utilities. She's a speaker, writer, and sustainability consultant who works with businesses and organizations that want to grow their sustainable practice by pursuing zero waste. It's Moji Igun. Next, we have Resource Conservation and Sustainability Manager at the Woodland Park Zoo. She oversees the renowned Zoo Do program, which we will be hearing about, and 3 grant-funded sustainability projects at the zoo. It's Megan Schenck. And last but certainly not least, we have the brand new executive chef at Seattle Aquarium with the Oakview Group. He has a background ranging all over the country with an expertise and passion for field-to-table dining with many accolades under his belt. It is Chef Jeff Kelly. And just to include everyone in my fun game I've been having, if each of you would introduce yourselves before we get started.
All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you for that excellent introduction, Alycia. My name is Jesse Phillips-Kress. I use he, him pronouns. I'm the VP of Facilities and Operations at the Seattle Aquarium. Hopefully, some of y'all got to come see us last night. I'm a white male, blue glasses, brown shirt. And a quick sustainability tip for you all is little actions add up. I can confirm this. I'm a cyclist. It's quicker to ride a bike in downtown Seattle than it is to drive.
Nice.
Over to you, Jen.
Hi, my name is Jen Skelley, Customer Success Manager at Boulder Use. I also biked to the conference today, so yay for biking. I am an Asian woman with black sweater and green pants. I forgot colors. Sorry, this is my first panel.
What's your hot tip?
My hot tip, take advantage of all the bulk aisles you see in grocery stores. It's a nice way to kind of sample things out. Yeah, that's all I got.
Awesome.
Hi everyone, I'm Moji, she, her pronouns. I am a dark-skinned black woman with glasses, a light gray sweater, and jeans. And my sustainability tip is just to get your hands in the dirt. If you like to garden or play with plants, it's a really fun way to connect with nature.
Hi everybody, my name is Megan, she, her pronouns. I'm the sustainability manager at Woodland Park Zoo. I'm a woman with pink hair and a green dress with tigers on it. You can't miss me. My sustainability tip for you all today is you can recycle just about anything, but I want to encourage recycling your electronics because 50% of our lowland gorillas have lost their habitat due to mining of minerals for electronics. So do your part, takes a little bit extra effort, but you're going to be helping out animals.
I'm Jeff Kelly. I'm the new executive chef over at the Aquarium. He, him. I'm the guy in the chef jacket. I have a black vest on as well. I've been in this industry about 25 years, and like I said, I am new to Seattle and the Aquarium. I'm excited for the opportunity. Really excited to be here in the Pacific Northwest. My pro tip would be, from a chef's perspective, is being thoughtful of what you're purchasing. Do a little bit of research. You know, when I'm doing ordering, so on and so forth, you know, you could be buying from larger companies, but doing a little bit of research, a little bit of understanding where that's coming from is a big deal. And even down to little things of, like, let's say, saving your vegetable scraps. Save them, make a stock. So you can pretty much use anything. But I know that's a lot easier said than done, but it is something, it's a good practice to get in the habit of. And that's what I got.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. So there you go. 5 tips, and we haven't even started. So what I want to start with is the most fundamentals. Sustainability truly starts at the planning stage. All of us can understand, whether we work at venues or we work in service, different elements of planning or specific services. It's all about the planning. I'm going to ask Jesse, would you share how integrating sustainability design early has shaped the facilities operations at the aquarium? You had your big project that you were able to work on. How have these practices reduced costs compared to coming on later? What's the upside of starting early?
Yeah, thank you. I think with sustainability, it's got to be part of the mindset, right? Thinking proactively. If you engage proactively up front rather than treating it as an afterthought, it's not really likely going to cost you more money. It just requires proper pre-planning. For those of you who have been down to the Seattle Aquarium, whether our new facility, the Ocean Pavilion, or our older facilities, those facilities really, for us, are an embodiment of how the built environment can show up in this space. How do our facilities embody our mission? We have a mission of inspiring conservation of our marine environment. Sustainability is our jobs. And so we have the privilege where we work to think about it proactively. When we were designing the Ocean Pavilion, were shooting for LEED Gold, which is the city requirement for buildings. That's really cool that the city requires this. Yeah. But as we were getting into the design and really into the dirt, we thought, what more can we do? How can we go further? And by planning up front, we were actually able to position ourselves to pursue even more ambitious building certifications. We're actually going for ILFI certifications, International Living Futures Institute. And that'll allow us to really walk the talk. But had we waited till pipes were in, till all of the construction had started, we would have been behind the curve on that. By thinking proactively, we can truly have a building that gives back more than it takes, that goes beyond sustainability into the regenerative space. And that's what proactive thinking can do. And you can do that at much smaller scales too. Want to host an event? A zero waste event. We did this at the Aquarium. The first one we did, it was an afterthought. We decided about a week before the event, we're going to make this thing zero waste. It was really, really, really hard. Now when we want to do zero waste events, we think proactively, we have the experience, and now it's completely doable, and it's not really that big a deal.
So on that big whoops, the hard version, what were some of the biggest mistakes that, looking back immediately, you were like, this we could have handled months ago?
Yeah, we ordered the wrong supplies to do it. We had too much waste, and we didn't have the proper waste sorting.
Okay, excellent. Any feedback on that? Yeah, Megan.
I have a follow-up on that too, because we're looking at doing zero waste for events this summer, and we're like, how early should we start planning? And we probably should have started like months ago, but here we are. And a lot of that is, being thoughtful on what you're purchasing for it. You can even have a vendor agreement so that your vendors are signing something saying, we will support you in your efforts for zero waste. That's something that we're doing. And also just be thoughtful. I'm the crazy lady always looking at everyone's like trash cans, okay? I like go dumpster diving, all that fun stuff. Like be thoughtful with like where you're placing your bins, like, and making sure you are also thinking about that guest experience with the zero waste and making sure they have the resources to put it in the right bin, and having that signage so people are educated and aware of like how to do that.
I can just add one more thought, just to put a finer point on what you've already said, is there's so many different stakeholders involved in planning zero waste events. So there's the venue, the facilities team, the attendees, the caterer, whoever's providing the food, and everyone needs to be on board with the zero waste event plan. And so making sure everyone's aligned takes time and planning, which is why you want to start as early as possible.
Yeah, definitely. And so if you're looking at zero waste as your goal, you might not have your next event be a zero waste event. The Aquarium didn't even pull it off the first time they tried in their new building. So it's all about working up. Chef Kelly, you've been working up throughout your career to doing zero waste from a kitchen perspective. That's a lot of planning. It's a lot of orchestrating. What have you seen as actionable strategies that were really effective to integrating these concepts into your kitchen?
Sure. There's quite a few. I think the main thing is, like you just mentioned, is coaching and getting everybody on the same page. If not, you're just kind of beating your head against a wall. I've definitely been that chef. I've worked for chefs that have gone into dumpsters and pulled that cook aside and be like, why'd you throw this away? Why was this not utilized? But I think having structures in place and having conversations with your staff, it gives you the opportunity to share your knowledge, and hopefully that will continue. So that's been the biggest thing, is the communication, is having those structures. And, it takes practice, it takes muscle memory, because it's really easy just to throw it in the trash. If I'm done with this, it's in the trash. Well, it doesn't necessarily have to go in the trash. A lot of the things we've done, too, that I have done in the past, is you have bins. You have bins that are labeled, whether it's a 5-gallon Cambro, that, hey, all the veg scrap goes in here, all the fish scrap goes in here, and then utilizing that. But also, it gives us the opportunity to have that creative side of it, being chefs, and to how do we utilize this? What can we do with this? What can we do that's cool? There's a lot of thin margins in our business, and that's part of it. That's a big part of it. And it's also just the fulfillment of implementing those things and seeing those actions come to fruition. But that's been my biggest thing, is just people as chefs and cooks, we're very visual. So if somebody sees something, if it's there in front of them, then at that point they really don't have a lot of excuses, to make sure we aren't throwing away everything that we're doing. We can use, you can't use everything, but you can almost use everything, pretty close to it.
Nice. So if you are working with a planner side or venue side, and they're coming to you and saying, we've got a big idea, we've got this event, it's going to be amazing, we're starting as early as we can, we want to bring you in on the ground floor, what are a couple of items that are really important for you to know in order to structure your plan? No problem. When you're getting an idea, here we go, we're gonna have this event, here's my plan, what are the key questions you need answered from a catering perspective to make sure that your ordering, your team are all gonna be ready to execute better for this event?
Sure. I mean,
Yeah, right.
there's a lot of different, it really depends on the event, so you're having those conversations, understanding, what their goals are, but also with understanding specifically the aquarium, and I'm still wrapping my brain around this. Like I said, I'm new, but the understanding of just the sustainability and what they practice there, but it's also understanding, I guess, what their needs are and what they want. If it's a plated dinner, if it's a past hors d'oeuvres, I think it's a little bit easier for us to control that, especially on what we're serving it on. The food, I've had many chefs, and I agree, it's like cooking's the easy part, so, that's an easy conversation for me to have, but it's also being, mindful and understanding, and also communicating that to the guest or whoever the client is that, this is what we practice, this is what we do. And, I think most people, I would be shocked if they weren't open to those kind of ideas. But yeah, just, it just really depends on the type of event, and just like I said before, just really having those conversations. And, if people understand and they know, then usually 9 out of 10 times they're on board.
Okay, great. Go for
Add
it.
to it. Similar to what you're saying, engaging the back of house as well as front of house, all of the staff. There's so many stakeholders involved, making sure that they understand the plan, they understand the program, and the reason why the decisions are made. It just helps the program overall and the event or overall. Just knowing that that you don't have as much, you can have as much training as you can, but knowing the why and why you're doing that that part of a sustainable event is really important too.
Excellent. So let's change gears a little bit. We've done our ordering. We've got a lot of waste to manage. The zoo is a venue/facility that's going to have lots and lots of waste. There's special programs there for use and disposal of waste for the residents of the zoo and for the visitors of the zoo. What actionable lessons have you and your team, Megan, learned that event pros could take into their world? Maybe attendees are animals, I'm not going to say they're not. But we want to improve our waste management. This is something very visual, something very tangible, but we don't want to touch it. Sometimes we have to do things we wouldn't want to do. What have you been learning at the zoo?
Oh boy, we learn things every day. But first of all, how many people have heard of Zoodoo and know what that program is?
Not too bad.
Okay. So Zoodoo, just for awareness, we essentially take all of our manure and bedding from our animals and we compost on site. And then that is roughly 500 tons or over 1 million pounds that otherwise would have gone to landfill that then is turned into compost, which we use. We have 92 acres, so we use that for our landscaping. And then twice a year, we have one in April, but we're sold out, so I'm sorry, everybody. We sell that compost back to the community. So we're really utilizing, that end product from our animals and putting that to use. And we're also saving almost $200,000 a year from those hauling fees that would have gone to landfill. So we kind of, we're innovative, we're practicing sustainability is a part of our mission, and that's how we integrate our residents kind of into that. Glenn, our rhino, is our super pooper, and he really helps out with that program. And so kind of transitioning over to like, what do we do for our visitors? We're trying to utilize what we can from what our visitors may be producing. We're piloting different ways to compost food waste from our visitors and how we can just continue to reduce. And maybe it's on the front end of just concessions offering a little bit less so that there's less of that waste being generated, even though it's compost, better than landfill. And so, yeah, just doing what we can to continue to be innovative, and, it's better for the environment. It's also better for our pocketbooks.
Yeah, and before we jump into the connection between the panelists here at the zoo, would you go in a little bit more about the waste streams and sort of the values and drawbacks in each one? Obviously, I think we can all agree landfill is not a good use of our planet's space, so we're avoiding that first thing. And then we have compost, which you are heavily embedded in actively doing. Yes. And what else are we looking at? Are there drawbacks? Are there costs to compost, not compost?
For sure. I'm teeing this very well for Jen here, but basically, you know, something I've even learned being in the Zoodoo yard, and we have our own Dr. Do on staff who's like very knowledgeable about compost, is essentially we are creating so much compost and even our compostable materials like your bamboo boats or your utensils that it's really hard when it gets to the compost facility to identify, is that compostable or is it plastic? And so you get a lot of that contamination. And honestly, if sometimes when you pick up that Cedar Grove bag or a bag of that compost, you'll see microplastics in it, and it's a shame, it's a bummer. So, you know, just being mindful of that, and I think, honestly, yes, compostables are better than landfill, but like, we need to kind of be skipping that step and looking at durables. Durables is the future. Reducing your single use, whether it's going to landfill or compost, like that is where we need to shift our mindset. So using any sort of reusables, whether it's like bring your own coffee mug. We're in Seattle, I know everybody's got their own thermoses at home, and in just encouraging that behavior and then partnering with folks like Bold who have those durables, because it really does make a difference.
Yeah, that's exactly where I wanted to go, which is reuse. We have Bold Reuse here. We're all accustomed to the more traditional dinner rentals, whether it, you know, breakable glassware, actual linens, but now we are finally hitting a point of futuristic usage. The people who are trying to sell us one-time use items are being pushed aside. Jen, would you tell us a bit about what you guys are working on at the zoo, and then talk a bit about what our event pros could take in terms of factors to consider when they are deciding to implement reuse versus not?
Sure. So at the zoo, we launched reusable cups back in last summer, I believe, June 1st. And we were also in the Zoo Tunes concert series too. So we worked with Megan and the concessionaire teams to make sure that we picked the right products for their usage. Looked for designs that were cool, but not cool enough for people to take home with them. Knowing it's a very different environment than a closed loop kind of, even this convention center is a very controlled environment. The zoo is not, because there's visitors that come in and out from all over the world, really. So that's always a different challenge. But we were able to implement some cold cups and reuse hundreds of, probably a few thousand right now. I didn't get the right.
46,000.
Oh, nice.
I'm prepared.
Good job, Megan.
Thank you.
Your homework. So when you were looking at the action plan, that's a very big scale project, 46,000. I don't know how many cups came here for the conference. I don't know if you know. But when we're looking at a number like that, do you know?
35.
35,000? 3,500.
3,500.
I was going to get, look, we're the zoo. Okay, 3,500.
3,500 cups, but I think about maybe 10,000 foodware items.
Amazing.
Including,
okay, so
utensils, yeah.
what kind of questions were you asking? If everyone in here were to go on this afternoon and try to fill out a form, what would they need to know to answer before they get there?
The first question is, what kind of products are you serving? That's always a key indicator of the type of foodware or drinkware that we can offer. I think maybe the biggest takeaway, or maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but reuse is possible. We've done it. You've seen it in restaurants. You've seen it in all places that have kind of public-facing places. So we're just trying to make it more accessible for everyone.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And not to make myself a panelist, but I have recently rented Bold Reuse as well for a much smaller event. And so we did need to know how many items we were going to be having.
Yep.
We needed to know where do they go after, since we don't have a facility, we're not the zoo. You're going to need to know about pickup procedures.
Yep. We like to know how many attendees you would have at that particular event, which would speak to the quantities of all the products that you have. We kind of designate a delivery point and a collection point at some point in time that works with the venue that you have selected.
Yeah.
It's a pretty seamless planning idea to get all the information on one event brief that just gives us all the information for operations to really execute well.
Yeah, and just like any of your other rentals, You send it back and they wash it. Huge
collect it and
upside.
wash it.
You're not lifting a bunch of trash bags and you're not doing a bunch of dishes. And it's all about having these strategic partnerships. You're partnered with the zoo. It's lots of opportunities out there to bring people in. You've got experts on the team that can help. What other considerations should our audience be having with making the partnerships? What do they need to know? Where can they find resources instead?
Well, I think, especially for Seattle, we have a really great partnership with Seattle Public Utilities, where they have a reuse incentive program, and maybe Moji, you might have some more information on that one. But their hope is to really engage with the community and support businesses, large and small, to have this option for reuse and to just be able to, lower their footprint.
Yeah, I'll dive more into the Reuse Seattle incentive program. So the city is offering up to $500 for event organizers and businesses who want to invest in more durable or reusable wares. So if you want to buy a set of dishes for your restaurant or some mugs for your coffee shop, or try something like bold reuse at an event, you can look at the reuseseattle.org website and learn more about that incentive program.
I'd like to just make one comment on this topic in general. So it can be a lot when we're thinking about this, but if you go back to the 3 R's that we all learned when we were little, right? Reduce, reuse, recycle. They're in that order for a reason, right? It's not consume, consume, recycle. It's reduce, reuse, recycle. And I have a colleague that likes to remind me, she's added a 4th R, rethink. But start thinking about how we can do things differently, right? So when you're planning that event, what can you reduce? What can you reuse? What can you recycle that you can be proud about? That, hey, I did this, I had this extra thought here to really deliver an event that was both awesome and made a good impact for the environment. Both and. Let's have both and thinking.
Yeah, and I think being in the Pacific Northwest, sorry, I
I was just going to add a thought to that.
Yeah.
We were both going to say something. Yes, having done events in the Reuse Seattle Special Events pilot that we started last summer, just being on site at these events, whether it's a street fair or a farmer's market or just like a small dinner, folks have something to say about it. It's kind of a memorable thing for people to say, oh, this kind of makes a lot of sense. You could have just these dishes, and then we wash them, and it makes a lot of sense. So people notice that and think of it as like a really highlighting factor of your event, so that could add a little bit of flavor to your planning process.
Yeah, I was also just going to chime in and say, there's some turbulence at times when we try to integrate these new sustainability initiatives, and don't get discouraged. Like, this is a learning process. Like, even though we are a sustainability organization, like, we still, there was some turbulence, right, Jen, with the bold rollout?
A little bit.
Just a little bit. And we learned from that, and we want to be a resource for our community to, like, share those lessons learned. I know we've already had UW reach out to us and be like, hey, what did you learn from that? How can we, kind of skip that step and go straight to the solution there? So just want to encourage you all, like, get started, see how it's going to work for you, and you may need to adjust and pivot at times, but it's still worth it.
Yeah, we're all in the Pacific Northwest. We know, pack in, pack out, leave no trace if you can. If your event can leave no trace, how amazing is that? What a plaudit you can give yourself and your clients and your stakeholders to be like, look, we've accomplished something amazing, and they never even knew we were here. So yeah, I spoke at the beginning, this is a really big picture thing. These are all pros who are working towards zero waste. And what I'm encouraging you to do is absorb this information. We're all creative problem solvers. We're all tangential thinkers. Let it percolate in your mind. The time will come when one of these solutions will come to you, and it doesn't have to be for a perfectly zero waste event. It's just going to make things better. Better is better. We're trying to move forward. We're trying to go in the right direction. We're trying to learn from our mistakes. So it's all about building on what you're doing and making things a little better, which we already naturally do. That's something that's in our DNA. So this is just another area to look at, and it makes us look very forward-thinking and professional and have strong expertise. It builds our communities and our resources. So it's a completely upside event. So the other thing we have going on here when we're looking at the zoo and the aquarium is those are huge venues. We also are planning all different sizes. So I'm going to kick right back to Moji again as my pro here. I love the coffee shop program. I just want to say that right now. It's one of my favorites. But we're looking at events of all kinds of different sizes. How are we meant to visualize our waste reduction strategies as we're looking at different event sizes, different audiences? What tips do you have for scaling and looking at the waste reduction and priorities?
Yeah, so I think the steps are all the same. It's just thinking about the scale. So, for example, if you're having like a small luncheon where you just have a plated dinner, thinking about reuse that way is much more simple, where you can just think about what is the item that you're serving, what is the dish that you need, and where do people put it afterwards, and it's kind of a 1, 2, 3 step. But if you're thinking about that scaled up to like a street fair where there are dozens of vendors, food truck vendors with all of their different types of food, different types of wares that they need, different serving sizes of each of those products, it gets to be a little bit more complex, but the steps are still the same. It's what are you serving, what's the right container for it, what do people need to do afterwards? A tip for larger events is having lots of signage right where people are buying their item and they know what they're being handed. They know that this is a reusable item, it needs to go into the container. At the reusable collection container, having a big sign, you should see them all around the floor here where it says reusable, return dishes here. Making it very clear about where things go after you're done using them is very helpful. And then for even bigger events, I'm thinking about West Seattle Summerfest that Bold did last summer with, I think it was over 30,000 attendees for 2 days, 3 days? Several days. It was a long event. And we had volunteers there guiding folks saying like, if you have a reusable dish, come here, let me show you how to sort your trash. So depending on if it's just a small dinner with dozens of people or a large event with tens of thousands of people, the scale will differentiate, but the steps are all the same.
I would add to that, to all of that, but the return bins that go with all the reusables, it's really important to have a 1-to-1 ratio with all the other waste streams, because as an attendee, you probably have like 2 seconds to like figure out where you want to put whatever you finished. So to make it easy for your attendees to always have that kind of the location to be inclusive of all of the waste streams. So you know the person that's enjoying their beverage or their pastry can just easily put them in the right place.
So yeah, thinking of reuse as like the fourth bin. So landfill, recycling, compost, reuse. Then it's just like a natural flow.
Yeah, I also just want to chime in there too, like with a program that is new. Like, I don't know if we remember back when composting was new in Seattle, and that was like something we really had to educate. And so I feel like durables and reusables is another kind of that new next step. And so you just gotta slap everyone across the face with all that messaging and that signage, like have that signage and also that verbal communication when you are like handing out a boat to that guest. And then I also think, you know, for those bigger events, we're planning on trying to scale up our durables at Zoo Tunes, and that's 5,000 guests like at least every week all the way summer long. And you know, a new strategy we're also trying out, because there's so much we can do, but also our guests need to take some responsibility too. And so we do include that in our messaging as often as we can to be like, hey, like help us strive for zero waste. Here's what you can do and be a part of that. And so we'll let you know how that works out. But I think that's, you know, something that getting everybody involved, because everybody on an individual level can do their part.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. I'd love to dig in a little bit more. We have a captive audience to a certain extent with our vendors. We can have contracts, we can have meetings, we can have negotiations, but our attendees are not the same kind of captive audience. I would love if we are brave enough to share a couple of big psychology and communication fails from these programs that have been attempted, and where you go, okay, well, we either tried it and it didn't work, or we forgot and we should have done it.
Ooh, okay.
Whoever's brave enough to start.
There's so much. How much time do we have? But I guess one oopsies was what I just mentioned, the 1-to-1 ratio. Some venues, depending on the size, depending on budgets and just materials available, sometimes they'll just have, you know, 2-to-1, where, you know, every other waste bin has a reuse bin. And we found that, you know, again, as an attendee, I think we're spoiled in Seattle, where there's a lot of people that are very conscious about it and want to find the right places, but we can't always bank on that happening. So sometimes we'll see a lot of reusables go into the wrong bin. So that's one major thing that we really recommend, is that to make it easy for the attendees and your guests to to do the right thing, because I think guests want to do the right thing. As the venue, as the vendor, as the organization needs to just have it easily available for them.
Yeah, ease, ease, ease.
I have two.
Yes.
The first one is to make sure it's crystal clear that the cups and plates are not souvenirs. Please do not take them home, because reuse does not work if it's not returned. So that's number one, is I know you love the cup, but please don't take it with you. I've had friends take things and I'm like, give it back. And I would say the other one is working with everyone. So thinking about back of house folks, like the folks who are actually serving up the plates or giving customers their plates, making sure they understand what's going on in case the customer comes back and asks them, like, wait a second, you gave me this, and what do I do with it? If they understand, then they can direct them, but if they don't know, then it just adds more confusion.
Yeah, mine is, again, kind of with that. Those cups, they grow legs and they walk away. It happens all the time. That was something we discovered with our partnership with Bold Reuse, our hot cups. They were like, kind of felt like those Starbucks cups, and they were kind of cute, and people thought they could take them home, and no, they cannot. So we lost some inventory there, and that's something we're coming back of like, okay, could we have done something different with the messaging on the cup? Let's make it uglier. Things like that, to really think about, not only what's going on at your venue, but like what's going on in Seattle that someone might mistake something for something they can take home. So yeah, lessons learned, we're always learning.
Yeah, I loved the point about making sure the staff knew. That's a really, really good one. You want to add more?
There was something that I noticed at the zoo and other events, is that humans kind of tend to like to follow. So there was one instance where the reuse bin was placed where it needed to be. It had a flat top, but it looked like a guest just wasn't quite sure if to put it into the bin, so they
We know where
placed
this
it
is
on
going.
the top. And then afterwards, we just watched for like 5 minutes, and everyone else just started stacking it on top of that cup, which was fine because it didn't go. We could collect it and it was fine,
Yeah.
but it was just interesting to like see that, then we also kind of translated it to if someone saw someone throwing that cup into the wrong bin, then they think that's okay and they start moving the same way. So being thoughtful of how we can get that first person to do the right thing. Everyone just
Have a plant in the audience is what I'm hearing. Do a demo run on the bins. Oh my goodness.
But
it makes
also,
sense, though.
like-
We've all seen that happen.
Yeah,
where there's
and I
just a
think we've
mountain.
learned from that too, because we noticed we're like, okay, everyone seems to want to stack these, so we're actually trying this summer, like instead of a bin, we're gonna try almost like a rack where you return. See how that goes. So we're like trying to be mindful of like, how are people engaging, and let's lean into that.
Yeah, I think the psychology is so valuable in this instance. I feel like, Jesse, you must have worked with psychology to a certain extent it's like a physical built environment. Did you have any big wins that you were like, we had this idea and it totally worked?
Oh, we've had lots of ideas that have worked. We've had lots that haven't. But I think,
Trying to give you an opportunity to stay positive.
Yeah, fair. For us, the biggest things on wins, and I'll share a couple, but is celebrating those wins too, right? I think we get so wrapped up in the process and don't take enough time to reflect on the process after the fact. And so it's really important to celebrate those wins. But for us, I'm going to pivot a little bit away from waste. I know that's been a big talking point here, but we also think about things like energy use, water use, right? All of that kind of stuff. And again, I'll talk about our new facility a little bit. That facility has upwards of around 600,000 gallons of water in it that we heat, right? We made the decision to heat that entire place with electric heat as opposed to using gas, primarily for the carbon emissions associated with it. That's a win. There's a psychology there that you have to overcome. Gas, it's cheaper. It's cheaper, everybody. It's cheaper today, but not in the long term, and the impacts are bigger. And so the psychology of long-term thinking, I think, is a big piece of it as well. And it's really hard when you're in the acute moment of the event, of the planning, of the whatever, you name it. And that's where I'll go back to what we were talking about at the beginning. Thinking proactively, having sustainability be a lens that you make decisions on, having it be a value as you approach event businesses, your operations, the built environment, whatever it is. If you can build it into your value system, it just becomes second nature. I remember when we were making the decision on whether or not we were going to use gas or electric, the designer of the heating systems, the mechanical designer, was really pushing us to gas. And I went to my boss, and you know what I told him? I said, "Are you prepared to explain this decision away for the next 10 to 15 years?" That's all it took.
Yeah.
Suddenly we went electric. We made the investment. We did it.
Yeah, and
So-
pay to upgrade when the laws change and the cost changes or whatever is going to happen that we can't predict.
So you know, there's little strategies you can use to get it across. But then now we hang our hat on that. We hang our hat on being an all-electric facility. And I should be clear, the piers are not all electric yet, the older facilities, but it is our intent to retrofit them. But anything new we do, we don't invest in gas. And that allows these events. Now we've got a space that if you're going to come have an event with us, it's not going to have carbon emissions because the infrastructure won't allow it. And hopefully that's a selling point ultimately, you know? Hey, let's have an event that has less impact on the environment. What are the facilities that enable that to happen? And use that as a selling point.
Yeah, it's a load off me if I'm the planner that you've already got that started and I don't have to teach you. That's a huge selling point.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chef Kelly.
And kind of speaking to what Jesse's talking to, we are in the middle of completely renovating and redoing our kitchen, and it's going to be completely electric,
Nice.
which I'm excited about. I've worked with a lot of pieces of equipment that are electric, but not fully electric. So that's going to be a little bit of a learning curve too, but I'm excited about that. It's going to be a challenge, but I think it's just, you know, when coming on board, when I found that out, I was just, I just think it's great. I think it's, you know, everything, speaking to what Jesse's saying as well, it's just, it's like those, speaking on those little wins too, it's like just proud of what we're doing and proud of what and it's a story. People love stories, and coming from, you know, a chef's perspective, you know, creating that experience and having those stories, and I do think a lot of this is an experience, and sharing that knowledge is important. But you know, I'm excited to be part of this, and you know, I've got a lot to learn. You know, I don't have as many stories as they do, but give me a couple months at the Aquarium, I'm sure I will. We can come back to this next year maybe. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say. We're really excited about it.
Yeah, I just want to say too, you know, we're a nonprofit and we are striving to decarbonize all of our buildings by 2042. We have over 100 buildings. And so, you know, it's not like Jeff said, or Jesse said, gas is more expensive. And so we're making this conscious decision because it's better for our planet. And so you, as you know, you get to choose where you want to host an event, do that research, find those facilities that are doing that, and just continue to showcase that that is important to our community so that we can continue to host you and also others can follow suit.
Yeah, and I'd love to end on a point about community and our shared resources. We have SPU who's supporting us, and they have people available that we can talk to. What other resources should we be keeping our eye out for when we are starting to change our practices? Moji, you want to start?
Well, yeah, I'll just first of all invite you all to come see the Seattle Public Utilities table out on the floor. We have Bold Reuse is one of our partners, but we also have Our World and Perennial Zero Waste that also do zero waste events around the city, so definitely come by and learn more about that. Again, I'll reiterate the $500 Reuse Seattle incentive program that can help you get started if you want to experiment with zero waste events. And then the Seattle Public Utilities also has a green business program, so if you are a business, you can learn about more resources to reduce waste and be more sustainable at large.
Excellent. Anyone else want to throw any last thing before I thank you for...
I'm also a resource.
There we
you
go.
have my QR code or whatever, like please like reach out. We want to help you, you know, be more sustainable in what you're doing, and we're learning things too. So don't hesitate to reach out. We're also the zoo, so we're fun.
That's so true. Awesome. Thank you so much. Let's hear it for Chef Kelly, Megan, Moji, Jen, and Jesse. Thank you, everyone. Let's